He came to us draped in promises, a savior in a tailored suit. Chancellor Saffron, they called him. A man of the people, they whispered. He spoke of unity and strength, of prosperity for all. His words were honeyed poison. We drank them down, thirsty for hope. Saffron's rise was swift and absolute. He exploited our fears. He preyed on our anxieties. The old government, riddled with corruption, crumbled before him. He was a master manipulator, a puppeteer of passion. We were blind to his true intentions, blinded by the allure of his fabricated dawn. The warning signs were there, subtle at first, a tightening of regulations, a muzzling of the press, a growing intolerance for dissent. We dismissed them as necessary evils, the bitter pills for a healthier tomorrow. How wrong we were. The man who promised us a new era was ushering in a dark age, an age where fear was the currency and silence bought survival. We had traded our freedom for the illusion of security, and Chancellor Saffron, the architect of this gilded cage, smiled down upon us all. The institutions that once safeguarded our freedoms became tools of oppression. The judiciary, once a beacon of impartiality, now danced to Saffron's tune. Judges who dared to rule against his interests found themselves swiftly removed, replaced by those who understood the cost of defiance. Justice became a performance, scripted and stage-managed by the regime. The parliament, once a forum for debate and dissent, was now a chorus of sycophants. Representatives who dared to voice concerns were silenced, their careers destroyed. Legislation was rubber-stamped, eroding our rights with alarming speed. Freedom of speech became a distant memory, a casualty in Saffron's relentless pursuit of control. He surrounded himself with loyalists, wealthy industrialists who benefited from his policies, corrupt officials who turned a blind eye to his excesses. These were the new elite, the oligarchs who propped up his regime. Our voices, drowned out by their wealth and influence, were lost in the corridors of power. Democracy, once the bedrock of our nation, was crumbling under the weight of Saffron's ambition. In its place, he erected a monument to himself, an edifice of fear and control, built on the backs of the silenced and the oppressed. The airwaves were saturated with his message. Every newspaper, every television channel, every radio station blared out the same narrative. Saffron was our savior, our protector, our guide. To question him was to question the very fabric of our nation. To criticize him was tantamount to treason. They bombarded us with images of a prosperous Balsinia, smiling families, gleaming factories, bountiful harvests. The reality, of course, was far different. Poverty was on the rise. Unemployment soared. The gap between the rich and the poor widened into a chasm. Yet, the propaganda had its intended effect. Many believed the lies they were fed. They clung to the hope that Saffron offered, however illusory it may have been. Fear and uncertainty can make people believe anything. But beneath the surface, a current of dissent was growing. Whispers of discontent in hushed tones, acts of defiance, small and clandestine. We knew that to speak out openly was to invite retribution, but the human spirit, like a flame, is not easily extinguished. It flickers even in the darkest of times. Section 4. A voice stilled. The parade and its martyr. The parade was intended as a spectacle of national unity, a celebration of Saffron's rule. Flags lined the streets, their crimson hues a stark reminder of the regime's grip on power. The air crackled with anticipation, but it was a nervous, brittle energy, and then it happened. A lone figure emerged from the crowd, a young woman, her face a picture of quiet defiance. She held aloft a simple sign, the words scrawled in bold letters, "Freedom for Balsinia." For a moment there was silence, a collective intake of breath. The response was swift and brutal. Secret police swarmed the woman, dragging her away as she screamed in protest. The crowd watched in stunned silence. The incident, brief and chaotic, was excised from the official narrative. The young woman, her name lost to history, became a symbol of resistance, a martyr for the cause of freedom. The parade continued, but the mood had shifted. The veneer of celebration had cracked, revealing the fear and unease that lay beneath. Saffron, his face a mask of cold fury, had been shaken. He had seen the face of defiance, and it terrified him. Section 5. Living with the Ghost of Freedom. Life under Saffron's rule was a study in contradictions. We went through the motions of our lives, but the joy, the spontaneity, had gone. We were haunted by the ghost of freedom, the memory of a time when we could speak our minds without fear. Fear permeated every aspect of our lives. Fear of surveillance, fear of arbitrary arrest, fear of disappearing in the night. We learned to self-censor, to avoid certain topics of conversation. Trust evaporated, replaced by suspicion and paranoia. Yet even in the face of such oppression, the human spirit found ways to endure. Acts of kindness became quiet acts of rebellion, small gestures of defiance, a way of reclaiming our humanity. We clung to the hope that one day, somehow, Saffron's reign of fear would end. The fight for freedom is rarely a straight line. There are setbacks, disappointments, moments of despair, but the yearning for liberty, once kindled, is not easily extinguished. It burns brightest in the darkest of times, a beacon of hope in a world shrouded in shadow. And we, the people of Balsinia, would keep that flame alive.